Quite obviously, the biggest difference between a smartwatch and a conventional watch is the display. The digital touchscreen on a smartwatch needs to turn on and off to conserve battery, or it would probably last around about an hour. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in the background to ensure that when you look at the watch, it actually turns on. Because let's face it, a smartwatch as a concept needs to work flawlessly when it displays the time, or there's not much point in switching from a conventional watch which always tells you the time. Smartwatches, in this case the Moto 360, use a combination of sensors to work out when you are actually using the watch. Now, although it doesn't look like it at the moment, this watch is actually on, but it's not displaying the time because I haven't got it set in the right position. There we are. In a completely upright position, such as this, the watch assumes that you're not actually looking or using it. But when I tilt it to a 60 to 70 degree angle, the watch assumes that I want to tell the time, and so it illuminates for around about 3 to 4 seconds. With the watch held in my hands like that, it's a rather artificial test. So what I'm going to do now is put the watch actually on my wrist, and we will mimic looking at the time. The watch does have a secondary setting which is called Ambient light mode, and I will go into that in more detail, but for now we'll put the watch on and we'll tilt it as if we are looking at the time and see if the watch illuminates, which it does. On further reflection, I can do this same motion with my arm, tilting it to look at it, and it will illuminate and work 9 out of 10 times, so it's almost flawless. As with any technology that relies on motion and lights, it doesn't always work flawlessly. In this example, I'm not looking at the watch, I'm pointing it upwards, but it still illuminates. In the test earlier, when I wasn't wearing a watch, it didn't illuminate, but that's a one-off. If I try again, it won't light up. But then if I tilt the watch to a more vertical position, it does light up. And don't forget, there is always the override of actually touching the screen or pressing the physical button on the smartwatch. So in terms of delivering the most important aspect of a watch, which is to tell you the time, in the case of the Moto 360, yes, it does work. Not flawlessly, but acceptably. This is one of those moments in time when we are reinventing something, the watch, and I'm pleased to say it still works. And to be fair to the smartwatch manufacturers, they are also trying to address the factor of the small margin for error when the watch doesn't illuminate, and that's ambient screen. This puts the smartwatch into 3 modes of activity: active, inactive and passive. And passive mode is the one we are about to see in this demonstration. What's going to happen is that the screen is going to dim and wash out so that we can only see a very low light display of the watch, like this. Now, it's difficult to see with my studio lights on, so what I'm going to do is pop them off and you can see the screen a little more clearly. You will notice 2 things here. First of all, the watch face is remaining on. Even though I'm not looking at it, it's not tilted to a 60 or 70 degree angle and it's pointing straight upwards. Secondly, the display is more basic, and we'll come back to that in a minute because I want to show you this. Now the watch face has completely turned off because it assumes I'm not looking at it at all. If I tilt it back upwards, it will activate in ambient mode because it thinks I might be glancing at the watch, and then if I tilt it directly at me, as if I'm looking at the watch, it will come completely active again. After it's been active for around 3 to 4 seconds, again it will go into ambient mode because you might still be looking at it, but you're not interacting with the watch. Again, if I put the watch into a position as if it was on my wrist pointing away from me, it completely turns off. Now, for a moment, let's step back from how well it actually works and consider how much of an improvement this is over previous forms of the technology. There are still many questions to ask about the basic functions of a smartwatch, but in terms of its core function to display the time, to actually turn on when you need it to, it's pretty much there. I'm very much one of those people who gets very impatient when technology tries to reinvent itself and it ends up being slower or not as flawless as it was in previous incarnations. For example, voice commands are still very flaky, and they are on a smartwatch, which I will demonstrate in a future video. To be honest, I thought touchscreens would never work as a concept because they were always inaccurate and they didn't work perfectly. Then capacitive screens came out and the smartphone market with touchscreens took off. I'm sure voice commands will get there in the future as well, but in terms of light and motion sensor activated technology, I think we've finally hit the mark with smartwatches. There is just one more thing to mention with the ambient mode. As I said, it displays a basic version of the watch screen, and some developers have realised that people might want to look at even more information when the watch is active, and you end up with watch faces like this. Granted, this is an extreme example, and if you had a flux capacitor, you'd probably be travelling back to 1985 with this watch. But with the technology essentially there now, and operating systems rapidly increasing in their functionality, this is the new technological Wild West. For me, it feels like we're at the very beginning of a new workable piece of technology. With Apple and Google now very active in this market, within the next 2 or 3 years, we will see a radical revolution of the smartwatch, and I'm very excited to be here at the very beginning of this journey. However, there is still one massive Achilles heel that you just saw, and that's battery life. We'll look at that in a future video, but can we get used to watches lasting a day rather than 6 months? Hey there, thank you for watching the Video Gadgets Journal. My name is Rob, and each of my videos is designed to inform, intrigue and entertain, to connect you with your technology. Today you've been watching a Moto 360 smartwatch video. To learn more about it, click over here. If you want to get the best out of a device, then click on hints and tips over here. And if you want to learn more about the channel and me in general, then click right here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.